Well, good evening, everybody. Sure nice to be with everyone here tonight. And it's so special to have some guests from out of town. And friends, are you grateful to have the friends from Arkansas to come help work your territory? It's going to be a lot of fun this week, so we're excited to be with locals and the friends from Mina, too. And as we think about this week, first thing I have to say, you've got an awesome Kingdom Hall. Your Kingdom Hall is beautiful. We were here a couple times as you were building it, but Rachel and I never got to see the finished product until now. So you deserve a lot of commendation because you worked hard on this building and you provided so much in the way of hospitality. So good job. And you've got a beautiful place that brings glory to Jehovah. So thanks for all your hard work. And so we look forward to catching up with you this week and seeing what's going on in your lives. So please visit with us at the meetings and in field service. So as we get started, let's take our Bible. We're going to develop this theme, loyalty, part of the new personality, and we're going to go to Ephesians chapter 4. So let's take our Bibles here, Ephesians chapter 4. Now, as you come to this Bible book, I'd like for you to think back 2 hours ago, and what were you doing? 2 hours ago. You might have been looking in a mirror as you're getting ready for the meeting. You might have been looking at yourself as you get your clothes together, what you wanted to wear. You're making sure everything looks good, and you did beautifully. Everybody looks great tonight. Now, how does that relate to our topic? Well, as you look here in Ephesians chapter 4, notice verse 23 and 24, and let's see what it has to do with putting on our beautiful clothing tonight. Ephesians 4:23 says, "And you should continue to be made new in your dominant mental attitude, and," now notice this, "should put on the new personality that was created according to God's will in true righteousness and loyalty." Put on the new personality. Now, that's what we're invited to do. Just like we put on clothing for our meetings, we put on the new personality. Now, how do we do that? Well, now think about when you first started studying the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses. You started studying the Scriptures and you started making changes in your life. And so as you made these changes, your personality began to change. And so it's like you're putting on a whole new you and putting away the old you. And that's what we've done. Even if you were raised in the truth, just think back to the different kind of person you were when you were younger. And now as you continued to study and you made the truth your own, did you see changes in yourself? See, you've put on the new personality. So, friends, you deserve a lot of commendation for the changes that have been made. But now, as you think about the clothes we're wearing tonight, now, without looking at any tags, do you know who the designer is of the clothes you're wearing? Now, if you're a brother, you probably have no idea. But if you're a sister, you might know who made the clothes you're wearing tonight. Well, who's the designer of the new personality? Look again at verse 24. It says, "Put on the new personality that was created according to God's will." So Jehovah's the designer of this outfit that you're wearing here tonight. He knew you would look so good in it. And that's what you've done. You've taken what Jehovah created and you have made it your own. But now as you think about putting together the outfit that you chose tonight, you're looking in the mirror, think of the finishing touches, the accessories that complete the picture. In fact, notice this image. As you take your eyes to the monitors, this is something that may have played out just a couple hours ago. Now, as you look at this image, you see a youngster here. Dad's helping him. And what's the last little piece of clothing that he makes sure his son is wearing? Yes, it's that tie. It completes the picture. It completes the outfit. Now, how does that relate to our topic tonight? Well, as you look at this verse, what's the final word mentioned in verse 24 there? It's a quality called loyalty. Loyalty completes the picture of the new personality. You see, we could go through all this effort of making all these changes, but if we're missing that quality, that heart quality of loyalty to Jehovah, the new personality is not complete. See, it's something that completes the picture. And what is loyalty? It's devotion to Jehovah. It's sticking to Jehovah through thick and thin, through good times and challenging times. It's sticking to Jehovah. It's faithfulness, devotion to our God. So that loyalty completes the picture of the new personality. Well, now how do we develop loyalty? Well, just think about the variety of loyalties that we have. You know, as you think about growing up, maybe you've got different loyalties. Let's say you've got a favorite sports team. Now, how did you get to love that team? How did you become so loyal to them? Well, likely it's because you grew up around somebody that loved that team. It could be your parents, could be friends, and so on and so forth. But see, because of your associates and those you love, you care about, those loyalties can develop. Well, now, it's the same thing with loyalty to Jehovah. How is that developed? Well, as you look at this verse 23, you notice there's a little clue here. It speaks of something called your dominant mental attitude. What's that? See, that's our inclination. That's the way we're inclined to think about things. So, for example, let's say you're driving down the road, got your hands on the wheel in the car, and what happens if you let go of the wheel, even for just a split second? You just let go. What's the car do? It starts to drift, doesn't it? Even a brand new car that's perfectly tuned has an inclination. It will go a certain direction. And it's the same way with our loyalties that we've developed over the years. So now, what about our loyalty to Jehovah? Are we inclined to be loyal to Him when we're faced with difficult situations? Well, tonight we're going to talk about 5 tests of loyalty. And we're going to see which way we are inclined, which direction we lean, which way we go in these situations. And as we discuss each one, in our own minds and hearts, we need to ask ourselves, what does this reveal about my personality? Does it show that I'm loyal to Jehovah? Well, here's the first one. First situation. Do I consider my race or nationality to be superior to others? Now, which way does our thinking go? Which way did we go in that thought? Do we find ourselves feeling that our race or nationality is superior to others? Now, you know, in the world in which we live, pride of race, nationality, social standing, these things are extremely important to people, but they mean nothing to Jehovah. At Proverbs 8:13, Jehovah's words here, I hate pride and self-exaltation. But yet there's many people today, they elevate themselves, perhaps at least in their own mind. Take as an illustration that Jesus used in the book of Luke 18. And we've got a picture here we'd like to show you. Now, as this picture comes on the monitors, you're going to remember this. This is in our new book, Jesus, the Way, the Truth, the Life. Now, every time I see this picture, it always makes me smile. Because you look at this Pharisee. Now, as you look at him and he's rolling his eyes, and you can see he's gesturing to the lowly tax collector in the background, what's he saying? Well, here I'll quote Jesus, what he said about that Pharisee. He said, "Oh, God, I thank you I'm not like everyone else." And you can just see him saying that as he's rolling his eyes. Now, as we think about ourselves, we might say, you know, I would never say something like that. But do we think it? That's where the test of loyalty comes in. Do we have a feeling of superiority when it comes to our race, where we're from, how much money we make, the standard of living that we have? So this is the first test of our loyalty. And here's the lesson. May our loyalty not be to race, nationality, and our standing in the community. May our loyalty always be to Jehovah. And that shows we've put on the new personality. Well, how about a second situation? Now, remember, we're going to try to figure out where's my loyalties lie in this situation. And here's the question. Is my loyalty to family sometimes greater than my loyalty to Jehovah? Now, which way does our thinking go? Am I sometimes more loyal to family than to Jehovah? You see, this is a test of loyalties, isn't it? Because we want to be loyal to our family. but we want to be loyal to Jehovah too. And sometimes we might find ourselves being pulled in two different directions. You might remember a test of loyalties for a family in the Bible. If you take your Bible to Numbers chapter 16, we find the example of Korah. Korah. Now, what's Korah's situation? Well, you'll remember Korah. He was well respected, well known in the ancient nation of Israel. But Korah's position went to his head. He became ambitious, and he started to resent the leadership of Moses. So now as you come here to Numbers chapter 16, notice in verses 1 and 2, you can see that he's starting to form a rebellion against Moses. And even in verse 3, you see in quotations what they said to Moses and Aaron. Here Korah and his supporters, they said, "We have had enough of you." Can you imagine saying that to Jehovah's chosen leader? We've had enough of you. So now as you think about this rebellion that Korah is forming, let's think beyond this, what we read in this verse, and think for a moment, what about Korah's family? What would they think? What about Korah's sons? You know, a lot of times when these kinds of tests come up, when it's a choosing between right and wrong, a lot of people choose family. And they'll say, "I'm with Dad." Right or wrong, I'm with Dad. And that's how Korah's sons could have felt. But is that how they felt in this situation? Let's go over to the book of Numbers, chapter 26. And we're going to look at verses 10 and 11 and see what the outcome of all this rebellion was. Numbers 26 and verse 10. Then the earth opened and swallowed them up. As for Korah, he died with his supporters when the fire consumed 250 men, and they became a warning example. So now notice this. Korah died because of the course that he was on. But what about his kids? What about his sons? Look at verse 11. However, the sons of Korah did not die. Why did they not die? Well, look again at verse 10. Did you see who died with Korah? His supporters. What does that tell you about the sons of Korah? They did not support their father in this rebellion. And do you think that broke their father's heart, or those boys' hearts? Oh, yeah. It must have broken their heart to see the course that their father was on, but their loyalty was to Jehovah. What a test. And they passed the test. And you know, today we find situations like this that come up too. For example, one of the biggest tests that can come on a family is when a family member gets disfellowshipped. Now, if you've never had to deal with this situation, you may not fully understand how difficult this can be for a family. One sister, she had a disfellowshipped family member that lived outside the home. And the sister, she was explaining to another sister why, and she would justify why she still associate with her disfellowshipped family member. And she said to the sister, she said, "Well, you know, blood is thicker than water." And you know what the sister said? "Yeah, but not baptismal water." It's a big difference, isn't there? When we've dedicated our lives to Jehovah, now where does our loyalty go? We're loyal to Jehovah in these tests that come up with our family. So here's the lesson. May loyalty to family never be greater than our loyalty to Jehovah. Well, let's go to our third situation. Here's the question. If a friend of mine gets involved in serious wrongdoing, would I see to it that the matter's brought to the elders? Now, which way does our thinking go? Which way does our thoughts go? Let's say this is us right now. If we're in this situation, we've got a friend, they're involved in something serious, some kind of serious wrongdoing. Will we see to it that the matter is brought to the elders? So which way does our thinking go? It's another test of loyalty, isn't it? And we want to be a loyal friend, don't we? But we also want to be loyal to Jehovah. So we're always being pulled in two different directions, aren't we? So these tough situations that come up. Now, as we think about loyalty to our friend, it's true, even if we keep something quiet, you could say we're being loyal to them, but it's a kind of loyalty. Have you ever heard of misguided loyalty? See, that's what's happening. We think we're being loyal, we're being genuine, but in reality, it's a misguided loyalty that will not benefit our friend, and it will certainly not benefit our relationship with Jehovah. To illustrate, just imagine as you walk in the Kingdom Hall here that there's a slippery spill, some kind of mess on the floor, and you're the first one to find out about it. How long will you leave that there before you see to it that it gets cleaned up? Wouldn't you want to have that cleaned up right away so someone doesn't get hurt? It's the same thing when we find out that uncleanness has crept into the congregation. How long are we going to keep that quiet before it gets taken care of? So if you find yourself in this situation, here's what you can do. Approach your friend and urge him to report the matter to his parents or to the elders. And tell him if he doesn't do so within a reasonable period of time, that you will. Remember this scriptural principle. Proverbs 27, verses 5 and 6 says this: the wounds inflicted by a friend are faithful. The wounds inflicted by a friend are faithful. So here's the lesson. By assisting your friend in this way, you manifest not only the genuineness of your friendship, but also the depth of your loyalty to Jehovah. Well, let's go to situation number 4. Here's the question. Have I allowed love for my marriage mate to cool over time? This kind of goes back to our discussion earlier, the discussion about Malachi and what was happening back then with God's people. Take your eyes to the monitors here. Have I allowed love for my marriage mate to cool over time? Does this look familiar? You remember when we were dating, we couldn't take our eyes off of each other. But now, we can't stand to look at each other. What has happened? Well, it seems that some have allowed their love for each other, that fiery love, to cool over time. You see, one of the things that happens is what's stated in Matthew chapter 22. Let's take our Bibles there. As we come to Matthew chapter 22, we're going to find something that can help. And it helps to explain why, perhaps, that a marriage mate's love could cool for one another. Here we go, Matthew chapter 22. Now, you might remember this. The question was posed to Jesus, what's the greatest command? Now, in verse 37, he says, you must love Jehovah. That's the greatest command. But then he goes a step further in verse 39, and he says the second greatest command is in verse 39. The second like it is this: you must love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. So if you're married, who is your closest neighbor? It's our marriage mate. It's our wives. It's our husbands. If we're married, this is our closest neighbor. And so as you look at these two commands, the two greatest commands, they're inseparably linked to each other. They go hand in hand. So as you look at these two verses, in other words, is showing love to our mate is showing love to Jehovah. So if over time there's been a cooling of our love for our mate, we have to ask ourselves, has there been a cooling of my love for Jehovah? At the very least, there's been a cooling of the Bible principles that make a marriage work. And this has happened to some marriage mates. Maybe you've seen this situation where marriage mates allow themselves to become emotionally distant from each other, and it leads to all kinds of troubles. We hear stories like this. Sometimes you hear about a middle-aged man who divorces his wife of some 20 years and attaches himself to a younger woman. And sometimes people will just kind of explain that away. Oh, he's just going through a midlife crisis. Do you think that's the right way to look at it? Let's call it what it is. It's a midlife betrayal. It's treachery. It's disloyalty to one's mate. It's disloyalty to Jehovah. And when you think about that expression, midlife crisis, how long do Jehovah's people hope to live? Forever. Is there some midlife point to living forever? It's such a narrow view of life. So no, we want to live forever on into the future in our service to Jehovah. So here's the lesson with this point number 4. Married couples, may warm attachment to each other prove your loyalty to Jehovah. Well, here's situation number 5. And here's the question. And remember, we're going to try to see what's my inclination, my dominant mental attitude in this situation. Am I reaching out for privileges to advance myself or to advance kingdom interests? So which way does my thinking go? Privileges, positions in the congregation. Why do I want them? There's all kinds of privileges associated with the Christian congregation. And this situation has to do with our motive. Why do I want to be an elder? Why do I want to be a ministerial servant? Why do I want to be a pioneer? Why do I want to be a kingdom publisher? What's my motive? That's this situation with this point number 5. Sadly, many have succumbed to ambition, pride, and disloyalty, characteristics that are not part of the new personality. Now, can you think of a scriptural example? Someone that gave in to ambition and pride. How about Ahithophel? Did you ever hear of Ahithophel? Who was this man? Well, Ahithophel was a wise confidant of King David. Now, what was his problem? Why did he become disloyal? Because of prideful ambition. You know, if you were to read about Ahithophel in the book of 2 Samuel chapter 16, you'd see that he was such an intelligent counselor. He was so revered that his counsel was viewed as if it was the word of God. Now, that's too much esteem for one man, and it went to his head. And his account shows that he kept pushing himself, and he ended up having a fall. You know, his outcome was the same as Judas. He ended up hanging himself in the end. What's the lesson that we learn from this ambitious man? He's a warning example for us. Remember, intellectual ability, close association with prominent ones, and years in the truth do not immunize us against succumbing to pride and even rebellion in the Christian congregation. So the lesson, what's my dominant thinking on privileges and positions in the congregation? Do I see privileges as trophies or tools? Tools in the hands of Jehovah. So we've looked at 5 situations tonight. So what can we learn from all these different points? Well, we need to ask ourselves, what's my personality like? Have I completed the picture? Have I put loyalty on with my new personality? Now, as we go through these points, maybe 1 or 2 of them kind of jab us a little bit, and we're thinking, oh man, I got to work on this one, I got to work on that one. That's okay. Sometimes the tie is just a little crooked. And it's times like this where we have an opportunity to straighten up a little bit in our life course in serving Jehovah. Well, you know, I want to take a minute to commend your congregation. And first of all, the hard work that you put into this Kingdom Hall was greatly impressed, or it greatly impressed the brothers that came from all over, because you showed a lot of hospitality. You provided a lot of food, and you cooked, and you fed, and these friends, and they appreciate your hospitality. And you made many sacrifices for your Kingdom Hall, and so you deserve much commendation for that. It's also nice to see reaching goals in your ministry. You gained a new regular pioneer. You've got a couple regular auxiliary pioneers. You've got 10 regular pioneers, and you've had more auxiliary pioneers in recent months than in the past. So I want to commend you for this. Interestingly, too, even though you had this huge project that you were going on, and you're not able to work a lot of your territory while the project was going on, I was looking at your map back there. You've got a lot of territories checked out, and so you're trying to catch up. And you've got this nice army that's come in from MENA to help you work your territory, so it's excellent. So that leads to your homework. Can I give you some homework? Well, here's the homework. Return visits. Return visits. Now, as you think about return visits, and you think about this group that has come from Arkansas to help us work the territory, they're going to go work our territory, and guess what they're going to find? Interest. That's their focus. They're here to find interest. And what are they going to do with that interest? They're going to turn it over to us. Will we follow up? will we make the return visits? You know, return visit work has an interesting history. You can go back 100 years to the 1917 Watchtower. And this is the way return visits started out. What would happen is the coal porters would come into town and they would blitz the territory. They'd find all this interest, and then they would turn it over to the pastoral workers. So the pastoral workers come into town, coal porters move on, pastoral workers come into town, and they cultivated the interest, the return visits at that time. So we've kind of got something similar happening this week, don't we? We've got our Arkansas coal porters that are coming into town, and they're going to find all this interest and turn it over to us. But now let's think beyond the help that we're getting this week. We don't have a distinction between coal porters and pastoral workers anymore, do we? We're kingdom publishers. So as you continue to work your congregation's territory, if we're only knocking on doors and finding initial interest, who's doing that pastoral work? Who's coming behind us? Hopefully, it's ourselves. We need to knock on the doors, find the interest, and make the return visits. So that's our homework for the coming weeks and months. You accept your homework assignment? So please follow up with return visits. One of the challenges we have with return visits is we have a hard time finding people home again. So try going a different day, going a different time. Try getting contact information, especially on the initial call. And ask people, do you email? Do you text? And these kinds of strategies are helping many to be able to find their return visits and cultivate that interest. Well, speaking of the ministry, let me share with you the schedule for the week so you can have a full share in the schedule. So we're going to meet for field service starting tomorrow at 9 a.m. and 1:15 for field service. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 9 a.m. and 1:15. And then Friday night, we'll have our meeting with the elders and ministerial servants here at the Kingdom Hall. So that'll be at 6 o'clock. Friday night, elders and ministerial servants, 6 o'clock. On Saturday, of course, we'll all be together, 9 a.m. again. We'll meet for field service. And then the Pioneer meeting is going to be at 12:30. So if you're an auxiliary pioneer or a regular pioneer, we want you there at the Pioneer meeting, 12:30 on Saturday. Now, on Sunday, the meeting at 10 o'clock, here's the title of the public talk. And you might want to make a mental note of this theme because it's designed for the public, for your return visits, your Bible students, people that you might meet in the door-to-door work. The theme is, what is religion's future? Now, why does the question come up? People are less and less interested in religion. So people wonder, what's the future of religion? This is designed for the public. We get a little bit into Revelation, but not too deep. It's designed for new ones. So what is religion's future? Interesting topic, interesting scriptures to answer that question. And then after the abbreviated Watchtower study, the closing talk, throw your anxieties on Jehovah. We've got plenty of those, don't we? Anxieties? Oh, man. So how can we handle them better? How can we better manage the stresses that we're under? That's the focus of the talk, the concluding talk on Sunday. Throw your anxieties on Jehovah. And then after those talks, after the closing prayer, we'll meet shortly thereafter for field service for any that would like to go out on Sunday afternoon. Well, now as we wrap up our topic tonight, we've got one more picture for you. And as you look at this image, do you remember this little guy? What do we learn from him? Well, remember, as we start to put on our beautiful clothing for the meeting, it reminds us of what we read there in Ephesians chapter 4, putting on the new personality. And friends, you deserve so much commendation for all the changes that you've made, and Jehovah greatly appreciates it. So we're putting on the new personality. Now, do you remember that little tie? Little tie. What did that represent? Remember that last little word at the end of the verse? That is loyalty. Loyalty completes the picture. It's a heart quality. Sometimes people on the outside can see, oh, wow, they've made a lot of changes. But what's on the inside? That's where our loyalty is, our devotion, our sticking to Jehovah, our faithfulness to him. Now, one more glance at that picture. If you take a look, the little boy's getting his tie on, but who's helping him? It's his father. So many times we get frustrated with our own imperfections. We're trying to make progress, one step forward, sometimes two steps back. Our Father will help us. The Father is Jehovah. And so as we continue to work on our new personality, Jehovah is going to be there to help us make sure that we've got that loyalty in place. So brothers and sisters, may we be determined to make loyalty part of our new Christian personality. Well, as we wrap up our meeting tonight, we've got a song that we can sing. So if you'd like to stand, we'll sing Song 124. It's entitled Ever Loyal. So if you'd like, 124, Ever Loyal. And then we'll have Brother Vincent McGarry close with prayer.